Moses sent messengers from Kadesh to the king of Edom. Thus says your brother Israel, you know all the adversity that has befallen us, how our fathers went down to Egypt, and we dwelt in Egypt a long time. And the Egyptians dealt harshly with us and our fathers. And when we cried to the Lord, he heard our voice, and sent an angel and brought us forth out of Egypt. And here we are in Kadesh, a city on the edge of your territory. Now let us pass through your land. We will not pass through field or vineyard, neither will we drink water from a well. We will go along the king's highway. We will not turn aside to the right hand or to the left, until we have passed through your territory. But Edom said to him, you shall not pass through, lest I come out with a sword against you. And the sons of Israel said to him, we will go up by the highway, and if we drink of your water, I and my cattle, then I will pay for it. Let me only pass through on foot, nothing more. But he said, you shall not pass through. And Edom came out against them with many men, and with a strong force. Thus Edom refused to give Israel passage through his territory. So Israel turned away from him. And they journeyed from Kadesh, and the sons of Israel, the whole congregation, came to Mount Hor. And the Lord said to Moses and Aaron at Mount Hor, on the border of the land of Edom, Aaron shall be gathered to his people, for he shall not enter the land which I have given to the sons of Israel, because you rebelled against my command at the waters of Meribah. Take Aaron and Eleazar his son, and bring them up to Mount Hor, and strip Aaron of his garments, and put them upon Eleazar his son, and Aaron shall be gathered to his people, and shall die there. Moses did as the Lord commanded, and they went up Mount Hor in the sight of the congregation. And Moses stripped Aaron of his garments, and put them upon Eleazar his son. And Aaron died there on the top of the mountain. Then Moses and Eleazar came down from the mountain. And when all the congregation saw that Aaron was dead, all the house of Israel wept for Aaron 30 days. When the Canaanite, the king of Arad, who dwelt in the Negeb, heard that Israel was coming by the way of Atharim, he fought against Israel, and took some of them captive. And Israel vowed a vow to the Lord, and said, if you will indeed give this people into my hand, then I will utterly destroy their cities. And the Lord listened to the voice of Israel, and gave over the Canaanites, and they utterly destroyed them and their cities. So the name of the place was called Hormah. From Mount Hor they set out by the way to the Red Sea, to go around the land of Edom. And the people became impatient on the way. And the people spoke against God and against Moses. Why have you brought us up out of Egypt to die in the wilderness? For there is no food and no water, and we loathe this worthless food. Then the Lord sent fiery serpents among the people, and they bit the people, so that many sons of Israel died. And the people came to Moses and said, we have sinned, for we have spoken against the Lord and against you. Pray to the Lord, that he take away the serpents from us. So Moses prayed for the people. And the Lord said to Moses, make a fiery serpent, and set it up as a sign, and every one who was bitten when he sees it shall live. So Moses made a bronze serpent, and set it up as a sign, and if a serpent bit any man, he would look at the bronze serpent and live. And the sons of Israel set out, and encamped in Oboth. And they set out from Oboth, and encamped at Iyeabarim, in the wilderness, which is opposite Moab, toward the sunrise. From there they set out and encamped in the valley of Zered, and from there they set out and encamped on the other side of the Arnon, which is in the wilderness that extends from the boundary of the Amorites. For the Arnon is the boundary of Moab, between Moab and the Amorites. Wherefore it is said in the book of the wars of the Lord, Waheb in Suphah, and the valleys of the Arnon, and the slopes of the valleys, that extends to the seat of Ar, and leans to the border of Moab. And from there they continue to Beer, that is, the well of which the Lord said to Moses, gather the people together, and I will give them water. Then Israel sang this song, spring up, O well, sing to it, the well which the princes dug, which the nobles of the people delved, with the scepter and with their staves. And from the wilderness they went on to Mattanah, and from Mattanah to Nahathel, and from Nahale to Bamoth, and from Bamoth to the valley lying in the region of Moab, by the top of Pisgah, which looks down upon the desert. Then Israel sent messengers to Sihon, king of the Amorites, saying, Let me pass through your land. We will not turn aside into field or vineyard. We will not drink the water of a well. We will go by the king's highway until we have passed through your territory. But Sihon would not allow Israel to pass through his territory. He gathered all his men together, and went out against Israel to the wilderness, and came to Jahaz, and fought against Israel. And Israel slew him with the edge of the sword, and took possession of his land from Arnon to the Jabbok, as far as to the Ammonites, for Jazer was the boundary of the Ammonites. And Israel took all these cities, and Israel settled in all the cities of the Amorites, in Heshbon, and in all its villages. For Heshbon was the city of Sihon the king of the Amorites, who had fought against the former king of Moab, and taken all his land out of his hand, as far as the Arnon. Therefore the ballad singers say, Come to Heshbon, let it be built, let the city of Sihon be established. For fire went forth from Heshbon, flame from the city of Sihon. It devoured Ar of Moab, the lords of the heights of the Arnon. Woe to you, O Moab! You are undone, O people of Chemosh. He has made his sons fugitives and his daughters captives to an Amorite king, Sihon. So their posterity perished from Heshbon, as far as Dibon, and we laid waste until fire spread to Medeba. Thus Israel dwelt in the land of the Amorites, and Moses sent to spy out Jazer. And they took its villages, and dispossessed the Amorites that went there. Then they turned and went up by the way to Bashan, and Og the king of Bashan came out against them, he and all his people, to battle at Edrei. But the Lord said to Moses, Do not fear him, for I have given him into your hand, and all his people, and his land. And you shall do to him as you did to Sihon, king of the Amorites, who dwelt at Heshbon. So they slew him, and his sons, and all his people, until there was not one survivor left to him, and they possessed his land. Then the sons of Israel set out, and encamped in the plains of Moab beyond the Jordan at Jericho. And Balak the son of Zippor saw all that Israel had done to the Amorites. And Moab was in great dread of the people, because they were many. Moab was overcome with fear of the sons of Israel. And Moab said to the elders of Midian, This horde will now lick up all that is round about us, as the ox licks up the grass of the field. So Balak the son of Zippor, who was king of Moab at that time, sent messengers to Balaam the son of Beor at Pethor, which is near the river, in the land of Ammah, to call him, saying, Behold, a people has come out of Egypt. They cover the face of the earth, and they are dwelling opposite me. Come now, curse this people for me, since they are too mighty for me. Perhaps I shall be able to defeat them and drive them from the land. For I know that he whom you bless is blessed, and he whom you curse is cursed. So the elders of Moab and the elders of Midian departed with the fees for divination in their hand. And they came to Balaam, and gave him Balak's message. And he said to them, Lodge here this night, and I will bring back word to you, as the Lord speaks to me. So the princes of Moab stayed with Balaam. And God came to Balaam and said, Who are these men with you? And Balaam said to God, Balak the son of Zippor, king of Moab, has sent me, saying, Behold, a people has come out of Egypt, and it covers the face of the earth. Now come, curse them for me. Perhaps I shall be able to fight against them and drive them out. God said to Balaam, You shall not go with them. You shall not curse the people, for they are blessed. So Balaam rose in the morning, and said to the princes of Balak, Go to your own land, for the Lord has refused to let me go with you. So the princes of Moab rose and went to Balak, and said, Balaam refuses to come with us. Once again Balak sent princes, more in number and more honorable than they. And they came to Balaam, and said to him, Thus says Balak the son of Zippor, Let nothing hinder you from coming to me, for I will surely do you great honor, and whatever you say to me I will do. Come, curse this people for me. But Balaam answered and said to the servants of Balak, Though Balak were to give me his house full of silver and gold, I could not go beyond the command of the Lord my God, to do less or more. Please now, tarry here this night also, that I may know what more the Lord will say to me. And God came to Balaam at night and said to him, If the men have come to call you, rise, go with them, but only what I bid you, that shall you do. To the choirmaster, with stringed instruments, a psalm of David. Hear my cry, O God, listen to my prayer. From the end of the earth I call to you, when my heart is faint. Lead me to the rock that is higher than I, for you are my refuge, a strong tower against the enemy. Let me dwell in your tent forever. O to be safe under the shelter of your wings. Selah. For you, O God, have heard my vows. You have given me the heritage of those who fear your name. Prolong the life of the king. May his years endure to all generations. May he be enthroned forever before God. Bid steadfast love and faithfulness watch over him. So I will ever sing praises to your name, as I pay my vows day after day. And when they drew near to Jerusalem, to Bethphage and Bethany, at the Mount of Olives, he sent 2 of his disciples, and said to them, Go into the village opposite you, and immediately as you enter it, you will find a colt tied, on which no one has ever sat. Untie it and bring it. If anyone says to you, Why are you doing this? Say, The Lord has need of it, and will send it back here immediately. And they went away, and found a colt tied at the door, out in the open street, and they untied it. And those who stood there said to them, What are you doing untying the colt? And they told them what Jesus had said, and they let them go. And they brought the colt to Jesus, and threw their garments on it, and he sat upon it. And many spread their garments on the road, and others spread leafy branches, which they had cut from the fields. And those who went before, and those who followed, cried out, Hosanna! Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Blessed is the kingdom of our father David that is coming. Hosanna in the highest. And he entered Jerusalem, and went into the temple. And when he had looked round at everything, as it was already late, he went out to Bethany with the 12. On the following day, when they came from Bethany, he was hungry, and seeing in the distance a fig tree in leaf, he went to see if he could find anything on it. When he came to it, he found nothing but leaves, for it was not the season for figs. And he said to it, May no one ever eat fruit from you again. And his disciples heard it. And they came to Jerusalem, and he entered the temple, and began to drive out those who sold and those who bought in the temple. And he overturned the tables of the money changers, and the seats of those who sold pigeons. And he would not allow anyone to carry anything through the temple. And he taught and said to them, Is it not written, My house shall be called a house of prayer for all the nations? But you have made it a den of robbers. And the chief priests and the scribes heard it, and sought a way to destroy him, for they feared him, because all the multitude was astonished at his teaching. And when evening came, they went out of the city. Psalm 61 beautifully encapsulates Israel's faith, centered on the great gifts of the temple and the Davidic king. The rock and the Lord's tent evoke the temple, the place of praise, sacrifice, and communion with God. The king, when he responds to God's steadfast love and faithfulness, makes God's reign concrete. Israelites can pray to God from the end of the earth, when their heart is faint, and they will find him a refuge and a strong tower. Unfortunately, the king and the temple's leadership did not always faithfully meditate God's mercy. Jesus comes to fulfill both kingdom and temple. He condemns abuses of the temple just after entering Jerusalem as the returning Davidic king. But for this restoration to be definitive, Jesus needs to deal with the root of the temple and the kingdom's corruption. That is, he will be rejected and die for our sin. Israel's sin is handled in a surprising way in Numbers chapter 21 verses 5 through 9, but Jesus himself compares his crucifixion to this event. On the cross, Jesus takes on the likeness of our sin, like the serpent, and thus deals with it once and for all, healing our relationship with God. How often do you thank him for this?